Well, Happy New Year. I know it's late for that, but this is the first town hall of 2017, so I'm glad you're all here. And it's going to be much like a normal town hall. I'm going to bring you up to speed with everything that's going on in the Chancellor's office and maybe a few other things that I know that's going on around campus. And then we'll stop after about 35 minutes, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So the outline, I want to kind of debrief since the last town hall, tell you a little bit about what's going on. It's hard to tell you a little bit because there's a whole lot going on as we speak with respect to new leadership on campus. Talk to you about the law school, just in case you happen to not read the paper over the weekend. We'll talk about the Race and Equity Initiative, the series of active discussions that we've been having, and I'll tell you a little bit about the ones that we've had this year in case you missed them. Some important information about our ongoing budget development, our enrollment development, and then as always, we'll update you on what's happening with the strategic plan, charting our course. And in case you missed it, a little bit of news about our commencement ceremonies this year, and then time for questions at the end. So how's that sound? Happy about that? Good. All right, this is just since November. You all know, remember my last town hall, I was saying that we were going to play in that Pac-12 championship game, and we couldn't be denied one of the top 4 spots. It happened. We were not denied. We made sure, 41-10. Then we had the holidays, and I literally went to 10 states in 7 days, saw all my people except my brother and my wife's brother, but saw all my kids, my mother, my sisters, my wife's sisters, and everybody, and then came back, went to the Peach Bowl. The president was nice enough to invite me to the Peach Bowl party, and although the score doesn't reflect the amount of fun that we had there, I thought we did a good showing, especially the first quarter had a good showing, so that was a lot of fun. And then came back Monday the 2nd. I went to Montana to see my kids after the Peach Bowl, and then we had the campaign launch. Many of you were at the internal version, then we had an external version on Saturday. So that happened. I'll tell you a little more about that later. And then we had the following week our Martin Luther King celebration, which was a terrific event on the 16th, I think it was. Yeah, the 16th. Then we had our third talk in our series of active discussions, and I'm going to talk a little more about that later. I really enjoyed that. It was a small crowd, though, only about 30 people there. It was fantastic. And then our first ever UWT-sponsored reception at the, I'm going to get the thing right, the Associated Tribes of Pacific Northwest Indians, I believe. What happened there was I've been trying to get around to all the different tribes since I've been here, which is a hard thing to do in Washington. There's 37, I believe. I've had the fortune to be at 5 or 6, meet with 5 or 6 of the leaders. So Sharon and Alina and myself, we had this great idea. Why don't we go to where they all are? And they have this meeting once a year, and they had the meeting in Chehalis. So myself, Ann, our new dean, Ann Bartlett, Lauren went along with us, Montgomery, the vice chair of the Senate, Leslie from Advancement, and maybe more. Sharon went, and we went down and hosted a reception at their national meeting, not national meeting, their conference, their Northwest Conference, and we didn't know if 5 people would come or 50. There was about 100 that came. It was a great event, and we made a lot of friends and a lot of connections that night. It was great. Then we had the inaugural South Signed Alliance gathering, and how many of you know what that is? A couple of you do. It's a really cool thing. Julia's raising her hand because she really knows what it is. It's a really cool thing. Your colleague, Ali Medeiros, am I doing something wrong? Okay. Ali Medeiros, he put together a proposal. He's been watching, like he does. He's been watching all the data about our community and the South Sound. And if you just compare Tacoma to Seattle, you know, they might eat our lunch. Or if you compare Federal Way to Seattle, that's really not a fair comparison. But if you take South King County, the Federal Ways, the Kents, the Auburns, Tacoma, Thurston County, the top of Thurston County, Olympia, and you put all of that together, that begins, you need something?
Check, you just, excuse me.
Excuse you, yeah.
Excuse me, pardon.
Straighten my tie. if you put all that together, it can really be an economic force to kind of keep pace with what's going on in Seattle. So he proposed that idea, and we had our inaugural meeting. There were about 35 people that came. It's mayors, tribal chairs, Congress people, state, local, whatever kind of leaders. It's just called a Loose South Sound Alliance. It's a great thing. It's moving forward. Then we had our first annual Let's Get Some Rest Snow Day on February 6th. I think we'll do that every year now that I know how much fun that was. And then anybody know anything about this? You all know who Kelsey Plum is? Yeah, there we go. She has 3,315 points as of Sunday. She got 35 points Sunday night, passed up poor Brittany Griner, who was 6'7", by the way, had 32.83, and she has 2 games left, and I think she's probably guaranteed 2 games at least in the Pac-12 conference, and you know we're going to get invited to the NCAA, so there's at least 2 games. So she's going to break the all-time scoring record for NCAA women. That's pretty exciting. UW, Husky. You can see what my priorities are. Okay, let's talk about organizational leadership. That's why I was a little bit late. I've been interviewing somebody. But finally, we have announcement. Rachel accepted the inaugural deanship of the School of Education. We're really excited about that. We had 3 terrific candidates on campus. We've kicked off the search for Vice Chancellor of Finance Administration after about, 2 weeks ago? Was it about 2 weeks ago? We had a search committee meeting, and that's just about ready to launch. We kicked off the search, but the announcement's not out there yet. It should be out there within a week or 2. Vice Chancellor for Student Enrollment Services. We had our first candidate early this week, and our second candidate is here in person. I just met with her for an hour before I came in here. And then, not next week, but the following week, there are 2 additional outstanding candidates, and then we'll be making that decision. And that's co-chaired by Patrick and Andrea. They'll be ready to hand that off, I'm sure. The inaugural dean for the Institute of Technology, we had 4 outstanding candidates that just finished yesterday. We had our 4th candidate yesterday. So Dr. Labatt will be working with the search committee, and we should have news about that soon. The Assistant Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion, I've been doing a lot of work on that recently, and we're down to where we have 2 folks, Carl and Tanya, who have agreed to co-chair a committee that's going to kind of get us ready to search, and then most of the people that I've recruited are going to continue on, but we may add a few more people. So I'm calling it the preliminary committee. But that committee is just about ready to get off to do its first work. The first work is to look at that position. It's been 10 years. Sharon has been in that position, see if we need to make changes, and then move forward. So that one's getting ready to launch soon. Executive Director of Global Affairs, Melissa recruited Christine to chair that search, and I think that will be launching at the beginning of the next quarter. And then I still need to launch the Associate Vice Chancellor for Educational Outreach next quarter. So a lot of searches going on. The law school update. Anybody read about this in the paper over the weekend? Yeah, they did 2 really good articles. The first one was an editorial board where several of us sat there with members of the editorial board of the Tacoma News Tribune, and they asked us questions. We talked about what our plans were, and then the reporter came out with another article. Well, a few things have happened. First of all, I always like to reiterate what the talking points were for this. Before we could do a law school, these 4 things had to be in place. You know, we want to be able to do those other things we've already challenged ourselves with. We'd have to have the support of Seattle, the Seattle Law School. We would need financial support from our community, from our legislative branch of government, and we would also need this feasibility study. So last time I talked to you, this feasibility study was almost done. Dr. Katz from the University of Denver finished that feasibility study, and we got that in our hands mid-December. I'm not sure what the date was. 70 pages long. It's on the website if you're interested in reading that report. It's really thorough. We couldn't have been more happy with the report. Now, the issue with the report is the feasibility study said that the idea has a lot of merit. And our president came down and talked to our community, talked to us, and we all agree the idea has a lot of merit, and there are many, many good things that we can do as a result of a law school at the University of Washington, Tacoma. The issue is the timing is not right. If you look at that report, read about the emissions declines at some of our sister law schools in the state of Washington, or if you go into Idaho and Oregon and look at this as a region, applications are down. Positions that are available in the community for these graduates once they get out of law school are down. So we feel we don't want to start something of this magnitude and not be successful. So we've kind of put the idea on hold, and we've changed our attention, not changed, but we're going to focus our attention on building the pipeline. So our committee, chaired by Bill Kuntz, Josh is on the committee, several of our faculty and some other folks. We're working to figure out how we can better build that pipeline in the interim until the situation changes. And you can read all about that on my website. There's a link to the report and some statements we've made. Okay, the Race and Equity Initiative is moving along great. The one talk I wanted to tell you about was the talk on free speech, which was January 23rd. We had one of our own, Chris Damaski, and then a colleague of mine from Montana State Billings, Sue Balterites, who is a scholar in free speech, and two local artists talking about free speech and expression through art. Great panel. They sat right here on the stage and debated a little bit. It was a little bit of a debate, a little bit of a exposure of what the actual laws say. It was a great night, and talked about that and what it means for our campus. Now there's another one. The fourth in the series is tonight, and I didn't have that written on here, but then I got it later today. I wish I had written it on here. And then we have our kind of bookend in May at the Pantages, isn't it Pantages? No, the Broadway Center. But where is it? Pantages, there it is. It's at Pantages, yes. May 3rd, you'll want to be there for that one. So that's going to come to an end, and then we'll move forward based on all that we learned. Other actions, there's a lot of things still going on with our students, with our faculty. A couple of the highlights, our faculty assembly put together a workshop in conjunction with the staff association and our students. The students had lunch, and it was all day in late January where we talked about these issues. It's called Going Upstream. He was using the analogy of a fish kind of going upstream against the grain, and all these things are coming towards us. Very well received. We've had several resources placed on the campus website and our faculty assembly website. We do have our bias incident reporting tool that's now live. If you haven't seen that yet, it went live, and people can actually report incidents that happen on campus now. So we're excited. It took a long time, but we wanted to get that right. That's not the kind of thing that you can just halfway put up there. We really did, not we, the group did a lot of work to make sure that was done in the best way possible. Also, I was kind of proud to be asked to go up to Seattle and talk about what we're doing with respect to our strategic plan in these areas. So Melissa and I did a workshop. About 100 people came to it up in Seattle on our strategic plan, and primarily two of our impact goals on equity and culture. So that happened about a week ago. And then, of course, Urban Studies, their forum this year, which was last week. This room was completely packed. The back part of it was packed too, on the topic of immigration in the South Sound. So things continue to happen every day, and we're making a lot of progress, and we'll never get finished with this work. The campaign. So many of you were at the first event, which involved tots and beer at the Swiss. It was a great event. All of us had a good time celebrating the campus and the good things going on our campus. And then 2 days later, on the 7th, is Brianna in the room? Brianna? Oh, there she is. Brianna, and I know it was, I would say Josh and all of his team, but I know most of it was Brianna, transformed the Snoqualmie Powerhouse, you know, the big reading room in the library, into this beautiful, beautiful venue for this event. The lighting was beautiful. It was perfect. It was a magical night. We had some students talk. We had some community leaders talk. And we launched the campaign for the University of Washington, Tacoma. And we were able to say that night that we are past halfway on the night we launch it. And that was a little tight getting there, wasn't it, Josh? The past couple days, we were not quite halfway on Wednesday, about halfway on Thursday, and made it past halfway on Friday. We had a couple of families that stepped up to their plate, $1 million gifts. $1 million gifts, families, our colleagues that live around us. It was outstanding. We had a gift of the Carlton building that we're finalizing right now a long-time building that we feel like it's ours, but it's not. It belongs to a community leader, but it's gifted to us in his will. So that's a very positive thing. And several other significant things. We had a $400,000 gift, I think, that last Friday that got us over halfway. And you always want to go live or public with your campaign at least halfway done, and we have. So that's the good news. The bad news is if you do your math, we still have $22 million to go. So I think Josh will be standing at the door with a bucket, and you're all welcome to drop into the bucket, whatever you can afford. So anyway, that's a lot of excitement with our campaign, and we'll be working on that for the next 3 years. Budget development. Okay, this is a little more somber news, but it's good news. Let's look at this in a kind of a simplified way, and I have to thank Jan and Richard for helping me with the schematic, trying to boil this down to a couple easy things to see, and I'll move over here. But essentially, our general funds, the money that we can use to hire people like you, staff, faculty, whatever, general funds are made up from two sources, the tuition and the state allocation. And the state allocation is essentially fixed, but if your student body goes up and stays up, then they correct it on an ongoing basis for the following years. So you can get corrections. You can also ask for new programs, and right now we do have an ask into the state legislature for a cybersecurity bachelor's degree. And if they approve that, then we'll have to jump and put together that, we've got the program put together, but hire people for that program. But those are few and far between to be able to get new program money. So essentially we have two sources, and those are our total. And you can see this coming year, we're projecting it to increase by 4% to 68.2, and then we have to do budgets in 2 years at a time. So we're also projecting the year after next, the second year of the biennium, for that to be a total of about 70.8. That's our tuition and our state allocation if everything turns out like we're projecting. We're estimating how many students will come. We're estimating what the state legislature will do. And all that is based on the best guess that Janet and her staff can make, okay? So we're pretty confident with that. So then what do we spend? Well, this year, we spent money on faculty and staff. Those are the major things. It's all people. What we do is mostly people. But we do pay our bills. We have to pay for electricity. We pay for supplies. We drink lots of coffee at the university. All that together is about $61.9 million. So we've had several years here when it's been somewhat comfortable for us. But what happens to the difference? You're wondering, where'd all that money go? Well, it goes into our temporary supply, and for the past couple of years, we've used that to completely redo McDonald-Smith. That allowed us to expand our faculty offices, and then we put up $10 million, or I think 10.5, along with the state's 16. The state wouldn't have given us the $16 million if we didn't have some skin in the game, so we put 10 of that money we save from the difference in these two numbers to do the Tacoma paper and stationery building. Okay, so that's how we got that building, which is necessary. We can't move forward with our electrical engineering or our biomedical sciences, and we've recruited a bunch of students here, maybe some in the room, I don't know, into those programs. So we got to have that building, and it's almost done. You can see it out there, it's great. So that's what we've been doing. But here's the twist. If you look at this year, we're figuring about 68.2, and if we don't spend any more money, if we stay stagnant, don't hire one new faculty member, one new staff member, or decide to do anything else, we would be at 66. Those numbers are starting to get really close. And then if you look at the second year of the biennium, which we have to do right now, we have to make a budget for both years, look at those two numbers, 70.8 and 70.4. So what's the difference in those two? Mark, what's the difference in those two? 0.4. But these are thousands, so that's $400,000. Okay? So that's not very much new stuff. Couple faculty positions with benefits, you eat that up pretty quickly. So right now, if we hire a faculty member this year, they would still be here next year. If we hire another staff member this year, they'll still be here next year. So we're getting to a point where we can no longer just increase what we do here without making significant changes to the way we budget. Okay? So that's just a reality. So what do we do? Well, actually, you'd think, well, we just invite more students. No, the math doesn't work out. Students, the tuition has been decreased, so a student doesn't pay enough, or even with their financial aid, doesn't generate enough to pay for what it costs to run the university. Because what's been happening is they are increasing our salaries. The current administration has tried really hard to keep them at 3% and 4%, and that's the projection for these 2 years, is the salaries would still, the raises for everybody that works in the university would be up there, and then the projection is tuition would stay flat. You know, the governor kind of committed to that, so if the tuition revenue doesn't go up, but we continue to, the cost goes up because we pay people a little bit more, cost of living, electricity costs more, all those things, we're to a place where it no longer works after this biennium. So what we could all say is, well, let's just worry about this biennium and not worry about the future, but that doesn't work very well because universities are long-term. We're here for the next, 100 years or so. So we can't do that anymore. So as Chancellor, I'm going to have to make some decisions or ask the campus to make some decisions. I think reallocation will be just a reality moving forward. When I say reallocation, that means if you want something new, what are you going to give up that you're doing now? Generating other kinds of income will be more and more important. We do that now, but we don't necessarily do it with a purpose in mind. So our auxiliary enterprises, our research enterprises, our educational outreach, which we really don't do much of now, except maybe individually in the schools, we have to increase all those things. So you'll see me being more and more active and insistent that we do step up and do some of these things so that we can continue to grow. Because anybody in here not want to grow anymore? 100%. We all want to continue to grow. We have a really good thing going. Students are really appreciating, not all students, I mean, we make students mad, I'm sure, but the product, we're giving the access of this world-class education right here in the South Sound. It's just something that more and more people are going to want. And people are hearing about it from further away. People on the other side of the mountains, the other side of the state line, are coming here as a destination. So we are going to probably grow over time. So we have to figure this out. And we probably, unfortunately, for our students, have to lobby for somebody to let us increase tuition a little bit going forward. Wouldn't take much. Couple percent going forward. Okay, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about this. Here's another slide about the budget. Essentially, I talked to you about this time, but I'm going to be completely transparent. I'll tell you everything you need to know about the budget. Just ask me. Wider input. I've tried to get wider input because I don't want to make all these decisions myself. I'd rather have all of you in on it with me too, especially if we're having to back up a little bit. We're assuming backfill, but no tuition increase. If they all of a sudden say, oh, let's increase tuition, then the situation would be different. We're assuming 4%. If all of a sudden Seattle says let's only compensate 2%, it would be a little bit different. So the thing that I've asked Melissa to work on is this right here. If you go look at our demand for where the students are, it's a little uneven. We've generated faculty capacity in areas where we don't have student demand and the vice versa. So we got to work on that. Now, I'm not going to go backwards on the strategic plan. We put $100,000 in last year. We never got to the point where we spent that. It's still there in the budget, and we put $200 more this year. So right now, that strategic plan coordinating committee, SPCC, that is sending out the SIFs, they're full of acronyms, but they're sending out the requests for SIFs, ideas that advance the strategic plan, which is right up here on the wall. That is still taking place. That money, that $300,000 is inside that budget I showed you. It's not money that we have to go get. It's inside there. That's still taking place, and that's going to move us in the direction we want to go as we take this budget situation into our own hands and solve it. Okay? And along the way, our plans are 200 students a year for the next 2 years, 200 additional students. But you know how that went last year. 200 ended up to be, 430 or something? So anyway. Let's talk about something happy. Actually, that makes me happy. I like talking about that because it's a challenge. We'll figure it out. You know, if you've got something people want and you got people willing to work on it, you're going to figure out how to make that happen. Look at all the smart people in the room. So I'm glad about that. So enrollment development, not a whole lot new here. We'll just keep consistent with our 4% growth rate for this fall, which is somewhere between 200 and 250. I don't want to make it too much of a science, but in that ballpark. But I got to tell you one more thing. For the first time ever, when we had our budget meeting, myself and the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Melissa, and Jan went to Seattle a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now, and met with the provost, who we report to for budget. For the first time, we were asked to, let's think about holding, pausing, stay flat, don't grow until you figure this out. So all of us are scrambling right now, trying to figure out how we can go past 2 bienniums and make ends meet, because they're reluctant to let us continue to invite more students here until we figure out. Now, don't everybody freak out. I don't want to cause a riot or anything. We're working on it. Jan's been working on it. I worked on it. I made a spreadsheet this weekend. I've been working on it. We all been working on it. There are ways to move forward. We just have to take those steps and do those things. They're a little different than we've done before. We have to be very conscientious every new position that we decide to put in place here. Okay, so that's the crossover. I underlined that so I wouldn't forget to say it. That's when we get to that point that we almost get to in this first or the second year of the biennium. You take the next step to, what would that be, 1920? In the 1920 biennium, the two things would cross over, and you can't cross over your checkbook at home. We can't cross over the UWT checkbook either. Okay, progress on the strategic plan. I don't want to say it's been slow, it's been deliberate. It's a big machine that we're putting together to move the strategic plan forward. But they have their $300,000 that they're going to recommend back to the Executive Budget Committee of investments and new things. That money will just get absorbed into the programs or the units that those initiatives are in. When they ask for ideas, my goodness, they got over 100 ideas from 75 different people. After culling through those, I believe they told people, if your idea is like a new program that goes through the normal challenges through our academic affairs or something like that, we're not going to approve those things in the strategic plan. The strategic plan funding is not a new way to do old things. It's a new way to do new things that are kind of across, new ideas that are across the university that can't get funded the traditional way. They'll consider those. So I think 79, is that number right? 79 people are being asked to resubmit their ideas. We have no idea how many people will resubmit those ideas. The SPCC group will work with you to develop your proposal, and then they'll caucus and decide which ones have the most merit and pass those on to the Executive Budget Committee. Okay, key indicators. I think I told you, if you look at the plan, each one of these impact goals has between 8 and 12, maybe 8 and 10 key success indicators, how we'll know when we're making progress. That's kind of difficult to go out into the world and tell them the 12 things that we're going to have for progress on this, the 8 things on this. So I've asked the committee, let's pick like 3 things, 2 or 3 things, that if we are doing those 2 or 3 things, we'll know we're making success on our strategic plan, and I can go report that to the rest of the world. So we're working on what those would be for each of these 6 impact goals. So that we'll be able to tell you soon when we kind of zero in on what those are. And then Marcy Lazari and Kathleen Farrell both accepted the leadership of the Strategic Planning Coordinating Committee on an interim basis. When I twisted their arm last August or so, they both said yes, but Marcy had already retired and came back. So I am working to try to formalize that position so that we don't have it depending on the goodwill of our excellent staff. They all have jobs or are retiring. So anyway, I'm working on that. Next week, we're having our lightning talks on which goal? 4? Whoops, no. I should know. Is that 4 or is that 5? 4? 4, okay, goal 4. And what the lightning talks are, if you haven't been watching TV or whatever, it's a very quick talk on one aspect of the plan. Remember, what we're trying to do is not only initiate new work, but we're trying to celebrate the strategic plan work that's already been going on. All these things are already going on. The first generation group that came out of the Student Success Task Force, the Faculty Racial and Ethnic Diversity Committee, all those things are already going on. So part of our strategic plan is celebrating those things. So we have these lightning talks next week, probably in this room. Nope, Joy 113. I should not say until I look. And Joy 113. And then there will be another one of these shortly after. The Student Success Initiative continues to make progress. I won't go through all these, but they're currently focused on high-impact practices, and I'm thinking that little bit of new money that we might spend, this would be a good place to spend some of it, because this, across the board, high-impact practices has been shown to help students succeed both while they're here and once they get into the workforce, and we need on our campus some better support for those kinds of things if you're a faculty member or in student affairs. So that's going on. The Teaching and Learning Center has created a new tool, so students, right wherever they are, they can use that tool and get help to right at their side. The TLC is offering these prep courses for free. And then Melissa has reorganized her team. She's put together her teams and reorganized them. She has the Faculty Professional Development Council, which is a key ingredient to helping us with our culture goal and our scholarship goal. Because one of the things we said is we want to empower our people here too to be able to help achieve our urban serving mission. So any professional development that we need to provide that or make faculty and staff able to do that. So she's got a professional development council and a learning and retention council to do the same with our students. Other initiatives that I'm working on, Michael Wark and I have been to Olympia 3 times, maybe 4, I'm not sure. We have a couple more planned, but we go down there. We have a 1-page list of our high priority items. On that is the student success. We talk about the state need grant. The governor was here a couple weeks ago. He wants to increase the state need grant. We want that to increase. That provides scholarship money for our students, makes it easier on them, and that way we can use our money for other things if the students get more money from the state need grant. So we talk about that. We talk about our ask for the next building. We have to be planning ahead. And that flat green spot up there next to the Y is the home of our next academic building. So we've asked for $500,000 right now to start the design of that building. And if we are successful, you design it, then you ask for the money to build the next building, so it's still 4 years or 5 years by the time you build it. So we always got to be doing that. We're working really hard to increase our partnerships and our influence on our native partners in the state of Washington. This has been a priority for me, and I told you earlier it's hard to get around, so that's one of the reasons why we went and did that reception. But we're working hard on that. I invited the Puyallup chair to my home and had dinner and talked to him. You might know him. He's the one who gives the blessing for our convocation. So we're working on that really hard. We're continuing our relationship with JBLM. We had a great leadership luncheon a couple weeks ago where General Lanza, who's in charge of the Pacific Fleet, that's who will protect us if there's a war breaks out on this side of the world. Him or him? He and Kathleen from J-Ray and Jane Taylor from the Geneva Foundation were on a panel. Great discussion. Some students were there. Many of you were there. We signed a partnership with Highline and the Federal Way Public Schools in the city of Tacoma to have some kind of presence there, and Michael Wark and Melissa are working on what that presence would look like. More to come, but at least we signed the partnership, agreeing to work with them. The Tioga renovation, right before I came in here, or actually right before I interviewed the person before I came in here, I sent a final email away trying to get the last step to initiate our Tioga renovation. Everybody knows what the Tioga renovation is all about? People are shaking their head? Yes. Of course you do. Yes. Yeah. But we really need to do that. It's sitting there in the middle of our campus, kind of like an eyesore. Bricks are falling off of it, and we can't tear it down. It's a historic building. It's just not in the warehouse. It's not a warehouse. It's a historic office building, so we're not going to get money So we have the money set aside from that savings account that we've been working on. That does cut our savings account in half, but we all want to not kick that down the road for future UWTers. We want to kind of solve it ourselves. So we've proposed, we got okay from the Treasury. We're just waiting for Seattle to say yes to that. And then we would march forward. And that would be ready by 2018, mostly offices, but we need those too. And later today, as soon as I get done here, I am actually going to New Zealand. Melissa and Ann already left this morning, lucky them. They're in Hawaii probably right now, that's where they're stopping. But we're meeting with officials from the Wairwanango, I can't say that very well, but it's a Maori university in New Zealand that has a partnership with Evergreen State College. And the person that has handled that partnership is retiring, and they would like to transfer the partnership to us. And what it is, it's a PhD program in Aboriginal Studies. The students get their PhD from this university, but a cohort, they always have a cohort here in the Pacific Northwest. Well, I say always, they've had one, and they're getting ready to start their second one. And they had 11 members of the tribes, mostly from Washington, I think maybe one from Alaska and one from Oregon. But they worked the past 3 years. They're going to graduate in May with a doctoral degree in Aboriginal Studies, but their dissertation was a project from their tribe here in Washington. So they want to have another cohort. There's already 6 students registered for the next cohort, so we are going to talk to this university about being their host here. So when I say host, we would probably have a faculty member or administrator who would convene these students so they wouldn't have to go to New Zealand all the time. They would come to UW Tacoma and do their work, use our library. Maybe as we got more into the partnership, some of our faculty would serve on their dissertation committees. That wouldn't be immediate. So it sounds like a great partnership for us. We talked to all the tribes about it. They would love to have us host it because it's a good thing for their people that need to get a doctoral degree, and they would like their doctoral degree to be directly related to an issue on their tribe. So anyway, we're going to go over there. If everything goes well, we'll sign that partnership, and then away we'll go. We'll try to figure out what that means. And then the last thing is commencement. You know that we're growing, and as a result of growing, we can no longer fit all of our graduates into one ceremony very well. So we've decided, after many, many months of deliberation, to have 2 ceremonies. The purple ceremony, which is going to be SAIS, Nursing, Healthcare Leadership, and Social Work at 10 o'clock. I don't know if lucky you or poor you, but it's at 10 o'clock. And then at 2:30 is going to be Milgard, Education, Urban Studies, and Institute of Technology. Now, we've had workshops or discussions for the students, and I'm kind of discussing this with you right now. It does mean a little bit of change for you, and the reason we did this were severalfold. First of all, we'll be able to read everybody's name. Of course, that's not the main reason. The main reason was tickets. You know, the students had a rally last year. They agreed not to call it a march. They called it a rally on the steps about the number of tickets. So this allows everybody to get 10 tickets to the commencement, and every faculty member has the opportunity to go to 2. And not to leave out the staff, every staff has the opportunity to work 2 of these things. So it's great. Everybody wins. So let me stop on the high note. Questions, and I think we have a microphone if somebody wants to ask a question. It always takes our group a thoughtful pause to ask a question. And then right when I get ready to tell the joke, somebody steps up to the plate. And... Yes, sir.
Seattle campus in the legislature? What is that about?
Well,
Do you know what it is?
I think that's an urban legend. You know, I did hear somebody, last year when I visited the legislature, I won't tell you a lie, I did hear one of the legislators say, when are you going to become independent? That's not going to happen in my lifetime. It's not going to happen in your life. We're probably the same age. Not going to happen in your lifetime. And I wouldn't want it to happen. We are the University of Washington. We all enjoy our freedom and our independence. Oh, yeah, we all enjoy our freedom and independence. So some things are frustrating, but we are a part of the University of Washington, and I don't think that's going to change. I think that was a rumor. Oh, is there a bill? Michael Work, is there a bill?
So the bill just removes the language.
That's what that's what it was, yes.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
took out the word branch. The bill took out the language, the word branch. We have branch campus, so WSU took out the language, and so did the UW bill. Yeah,
And
so
it
we're
passed.
officially no longer branch campuses.
And it passed in which? The Senate or the House? It passed in one of those two, and it's in the other right now. I didn't know that's what you were referring to. Thank you. Yeah. That's a good thing, because branch has a negative connotation. We are the major limb of the University of Washington, or the trunk. Yes, Charles.
Hi, how you doing? I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about what you think might look like when we start talking about reallocation in the budget.
Okay. Well, reallocation is something I started talking about when I got here, but I've met resistance from many of you in the room. But reallocation, I'm used to doing. Of course, I'm an engineer, and engineers get kind of ingrained with continuous improvement. So when you work in industry, you're always being asked to do more for less, and you can't do more for less all the time, so you stop doing things. So it's a process of deciding what you can let go of. So the reallocation that I've asked first is $400,000. Now, $400,000 doesn't sound like a ton. Now, if it's your department and there's like 3 of you in there, that would be really scary. But it's a budget you've seen of about $70 million. So $400,000, we have areas in the university where we can get a little bit here, a little bit there, and reallocate that and put that towards more strategic things, like if we have a degree program that's sending students away. I hate it that we're doing that, but we're doing that for a couple of our programs. We can't squeeze any more in, so we're sending them away. So to me, reallocation means when you want to do something new, you either come prepared to tell us what you're going to give up, or else I have to, as the chancellor, say everybody, cut 1% or something like that. That is not very strategic. If I say everybody cut 1%, the first thing people tend to do is take a position that's open, because that's much easier, and say, well, we'll just cut that position because nobody's in it. But that could be in the program where we are sending students away. So I am reluctant to do across the board. In fact, I won't do across the board, but I'll ask people, if you want to grow, for instance, SAIS, if you want to grow, what can you maybe stop doing that is no longer center in our mission that we've all put together for ourselves? So that's what I mean right now. And Melissa has led a group. They haven't given me the final report yet, but I think it's pretty close, where they've looked among every unit at the university, and every unit didn't necessarily have to give up something, but they found tentatively $400,000. But you saw from my budget diagram that we wouldn't have to actually invoke those this year, because we're pretty good this year, but we'd have that in our back pocket, and we could agree now to invoke that next year to keep us from that 300. So that's what it means to me, stopping doing some things when we want to do new good things, because we can't just continue to do more and more things. Very good question. Thank you for asking me that, so I could clarify that. Yes, he's going to bring you a microphone.
Thank you. Jan Runbeck, School of Nursing. I was wondering, where in the budget is it reflected the donated services by the community? I work with a community partner for clinical placements for my students, and I just did a calculation. They provide over $350 a week of free services by being a clinical placement site, times 10 weeks. That's $3,500 just for one class. Is that reflected in the budget anywhere as far as?
No, that's not reflected in the budget. There are a lot of things that aren't reflected in this budget. First of all, advancement. We get, donations to the university. I told you we got 2 $1 million donations. Those are one-time funds, though. They don't regenerate themselves. Also, we have in-kind donations, like you're talking about in-kind work donations. Those don't show up here. If people wanted to give more work, we can expand that way, but we can't always depend on that. They could at any time say they didn't want to do that anymore. So that's kind of it's great that we have community partners to do that, but if we depend too much on that and we overextend ourselves and they quit doing it, we have to pay people to do that, that could put us in hot water too. So that's one thing I'll be leery of as we move forward, is replacing our general funds with more temporary type things. So if you put more temporary type things in there, you can do some of that, but if you do too much of that and those temporary things go away, then you're back at square one where you have people in there, maybe even tenured people. So we really need to look at building sustainable income sources for this university. And we don't have very many of those right now. We've been a fledgling new. We're kind of a baby university. We're just growing. But we need to kind of accelerate some of the infrastructure so that we can take more advantage of our own course in the future. So that doesn't show up here. Other question? Right here.
Hello. Okay. So how will the partnership with the Federal Way Public Schools and Highline College affect the budget in the coming years?
Well, right now it won't affect the budget whatsoever. In my mind, that is going to increase our budget going forward. Somewhere down the line, it will have to affect our budget a little bit because we'll probably need to put a half of a person. Maybe we can share a person with Highline. So we might have to put, $50,000, $25,000 eventually when we go live with that. But to me, what that means is we're going to have a bigger presence in Federal Way. We already have a really strong participation in our student body from schools around Federal Way. So I think it will increase what we do here. More people will become aware, and we're waiting for the city of Federal Way to step up too. We're not going to spend money necessarily building anything in Federal Way. It's a partnership, so they need to step forward and say and then we'll work with Highline to maybe staff it for the first year, and then as it generates new activity, that will bring income. Anything you start like that, you have to build a financial model so it can support itself. And Federal Way, the mayor has talked about going to the state to ask for support for doing that. So that would be on the left side of my budget diagram under the state allocation. That would be an increase that would just go right on top of there, but it would be specifically for Federal Way. We couldn't use it to hire another faculty member in labor, gender studies, or labor and gender studies or something. Question 2, Mark.
Hi, Mark Penderis, Urban Studies. So my understanding then from the budget, looking at those numbers, is that as of now, we are not planning to grow or hire new faculty in the next biennium. Is that correct?
Well, not exactly. If you look at that diagram, can I go back to that diagram? I think I can. See how fast I can get back to that diagram? Oh, let's go do that. Okay. Inside, for instance, next year, over here. Inside this right here, this is what we're planning on spending for next year. We have several new faculty positions that we've authorized programs to search for. Electrical engineering, biomedical sciences, business analytics, some programs that were approved before I got here. Those already are searching. That's figured into here, okay? And I think some staff people too. In fact, there's even a couple in here because those programs start up over about 3 years. So all that's in here. What I'm talking about is new things. So for instance, right now, you're on the Executive Budget Committee with me. We are in the process of gathering asks, asks, with the S. And we've gathered the asks, and right now, they total about $3 million. If you look at all the new faculty requests and all the new staff requests on campus, and a lot of them, this is the bad part, a lot of them things are justified, but they're $3 million. Where would I put $3 million on here if I were, no, not here, I would put it, where would I put it? I would put it on here. I would put it here. That would go 69.7, and we only get 68.2. It would break the bank and we would get arrested. And you're on the Executive Budget Committee too. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, we can't do a whole lot of new things. We can do a little bit. See, this number is still a little bit bigger, 400,000 worth, plus we have that exercise where they've proposed $400,000 worth of reallocations. Those two things together are $800,000. That's 5, 6, 7 faculty staff members that we could put in, and grow a little bit. Also, if we hire a person to do educational outreach, that enterprise could generate another $100,000 for us. It's going to take a little while, so we can start things now, and that money's already in the budget to hire that person. And see, anything that we don't do that we've already agreed to do, these numbers here, if we decide to delay a search or something, that's all well and good. You don't lose that money. That money kind of falls off the table and goes into our temporary pot, and then we use that as down payments on things, like the Tioga refurbishment and those kinds of things. So we don't lose that money, or we use it for scholarships. We're getting ready to replenish our scholarship pool, our internal scholarships. We have a lot of scholarships which are funded by philanthropists, but then we have a lot we fund ourselves. So any money we have left over goes into those things. But the problem is you just can't build a continuing budget bigger than these numbers. Yes?
Hi, Ingrid Walker in SAIS. So I have a question about what the provost asked about in terms of considering flat or moderate
Yes.
growth.
I don't know where that is. Right here.
I think you said it was 4 to 5% is our
I don't know where
plan. And so what would modest look like inside that 4 to 5%? Are we talking for the next biennium after this? Could you say more about that?
Well, I wish you were there to ask that question. We were all sitting there, and this was really the first time. Now, I got a hint of it before because I meet with the president and the provost about once a month. And at a previous meeting when I was with my colleague from Bothell, Bothell is in a little bit different situation. They're in a situation where they've kind of violated their agreement with the community college that's there. They're supposed to be growing together, and Bothell's grown faster than the community college, so they've kind of overextended their ratio, and they don't have room to grow. But I was in that meeting, and because of that, Bothell has crossed that budget deficit earlier than we have. Okay, so I believe, and Jan, I believe, believes too, and Melissa believes, that the conversation that we had, and I wish I could find it there. Was that it? Yeah, that was it. This conversation we had is a little bit because of the situation that's going on with our colleagues, Bothell, and there's some schools at the University of Washington which are overextended. Some of the expensive schools, like the dental school, they're overextended too. And over time, the provost office has made those up. There's no money left anymore to make them up because Seattle is also going through that situation we are, where they're getting the same kind of raises and they're getting the same tuition cut that we are. So they're in the exact same spot. Now, granted, Seattle has a giant research enterprise, which gives them a little flexibility because of all the overhead. They have a giant educational outreach. It generates something like $160 million a year. And I'm sure all of that isn't cost. Some of that's extra income that can be plowed back in. So they have a little more flexibility, but they've used up their flexibility. So I think we're in this spot primarily because others are. And I've talked to the provost about it since that meeting, and if we can show that we have a good plan, I think he'll pull this off of us. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I don't want to doom and gloom. We still have plans to go up the hill and make a great place. Other questions? Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
okay.
you.
Anything else you want to know that didn't appear on the slide? Yes, Charles.
Sorry, maybe you could say a little more about that, because I guess when I imagine us, if we were in a steady state kind of situation, but the cost that you were outlining would continue to go up, so how would that end up being a viable solution to sort of stop? I can see scenarios where not growing would actually make some sense in terms of just giving us some room to breathe and figure out where we're going and ways to solidify what we're doing, because constant change and growth is complicated, right? But on the other hand, if I imagine us not growing or staying sort of flat, I have a hard time seeing how the numbers pencil out.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. That's the part that just kind of, I hate to say aggravates me because I'm not aggravated at Seattle. It concerns me. I'm concerned with Seattle's question because you would think that too, but even if we recruit additional students that are domestic students, or no, residential students to this state, the numbers still won't match up because they pay less tuition now. But we could do things like increase our ratios. We could recruit maybe 200 or 300 students from Oregon and California. That would probably take a few more recruiters unless, Jocelyn wants to go down there. She's all for it. So there we go. We got it solved. So we could, heighten our recruiting in other places and solve the problem ourselves. I'm just saying it's not gloom and doom. I'm just saying we're going to have to take action. We're going to have to do something differently than we do now. Right now we recruit primarily Washington. And I think that's what we are. We're a school for the South Sound. But we're also a school that's, I believe, and it's not just because I work here, I believe we're doing great things. I believe we're the envy of other schools, especially urban serving universities. Our mission, the people that we have assembled here, I think are getting attention, and it's going to attract people from other places. And to me, that's okay. Because the same reason we like our diversity and we like to teach our students about the global world, that same reason is also accomplished by people coming here from California. People from California are different than people from Oregon, or people from Montana, or you've learned that, are way different than people from Washington. So I think it's all good, and there are solutions. We just have to actively pursue those solutions. Question right here. We have time for one or two more questions.
Hello. Okay. I was just wondering how worried or not worried you and other top-level administrators in the UW system are about our current political climate, in which a lot of cuts to things like education and social services, that type of thing, are being proposed in order to feed other economic beasts.
Yeah.
And do you think that's going to have an impact here? Are you guys talking about it?
Oh yeah, we talk about it, and yes, I worry about it every minute of every day. And I go home and talk to my wife about this. She worries about it more than I do because she's at home. But at that level, I don't have a whole lot of time to go lobby against things that are going on. My job is to help this institution move forward. So the way I look at it, and this might be not by naive, is my job is to provide or help guide this institution through a place where we're graduating these young men on the front row. I wish there were some young women here with you, but it's just three young men right now. We're graduating these young people that are going to go out and change the world. They'll be our president in a few years. They'll be our governor. So that's kind of my hope, is that we're providing a kind of environment here that encourages students. They empower them to achieve their dreams, and if they have role models like many of you people, then their dreams are going to be influenced to let's solve some of these issues. So that's the part of it I work on, but yes, we worry about it. Right now, our research enterprise isn't gigantic, so if the EPA gets cut off or National Science Foundation, it's not going to affect us as much as it will Seattle, but then, if Seattle gets affected, we get affected. Because that reduces their ability. But yes, I do worry about it, but all of us worry about it. Obviously, you wouldn't ask that question, but we can't just quit. We just got to keep going. So that's how I think about it. And I don't turn on the news. That's a lie. I do turn on the news. Any other question? We have time for one more if somebody has a last-minute question. Yes, Jocelyn.
So as we grow, and it sounds like we might be doing a little bit of a grow, halt kind of model.
I hope not, but maybe.
Hope not, maybe. How are we going to maintain the commitment we've made to the community on being accessible to our population with out-of-state recruitment, and kind of all of this sounds like it's going to come together pretty fast in the next few years?
Yeah, I hope the last thing you said, because I have been in a situation before. I was in a very popular school in the early 90s, almost to 2000, that was growing like crazy at Purdue University, and we got so big, the rest of the university was like, whoa, we're just going to stop you from growing. And boy, it took us a long time. I left before we ever recovered from that, because when you stop, when you're doing something, word gets out there, people stop applying to the school, they'll just figure there's no room for us here. They figured that already with, Seattle. So I hope not to ever get to that situation where we're turning people away. So I want to solve it, but we can't just push it under the rug. We have to actively work on solving it. So I don't want to push stop. There's a little bit of a stop right now, but it's not really stop. It's causing your leaders to, work extra to try to convince our supervisors, so to speak, that we do know what we're doing and we are going to solve these things. We weren't aware. You know, none of us were aware. How many of you knew that we were going to have a budget problem like this a year ago? Did you raise your hand? Did you know? Oh, no. None of us. We didn't quite know. When I walked in the door, I was kind of wondering, because my situation in Montana was very similar to what I saw here. We were growing, but then the economy was, there was economy because there was an oil boom in the Bakken, and they were taking our students and paying them $85,000 to drive trucks and things, so our student population was going down. And there was no tuition raises, and we were still paying people more. So I had this hint when I walked in, but until just recently, you know, we haven't actually seen the full extent of it. I think I better let everybody go because it's 1:30 and we all have things to do, but I really appreciate your attention. I appreciate your attentive questions, and I look forward to the next time we get to talk. So thank you for being here.